house when I was 8 years old. So basically, we had so many candles in the house, I guess just because my mom was obsessed with candles. I was also obsessed with fire. So every time I seen the candle, I would put my finger in the fire. And no, it didn't hurt me whatsoever. I guess it was just amusing to me. And everybody called me a pyro. So one day I was scrolling on Musical.ly, and on like the Feature Me page, I saw something with a candle. And it was like how to make your own candle or something like that. But you had to make your own candle out of a candle. So I went into my room and I closed my door. And like the first step was melting the candle all the way. So I lit the candle and then I put a piece of paper in there. I don't know why I did, but I did. And the fire started getting so big, so I lifted the piece of paper and I threw it on my rug. And I didn't want to get in trouble for fire on the floor, so I just left my room and left it alone. And I kid you not, just a couple minutes later, I hear the smoke detector going off. And my older brother screaming. Part 2 of how I burned down my entire house at just 8 years old. So continuing on with the story, after I hear the smoke alarms going off and my brother screaming, I knew exactly what I did. And I blamed it all on my brother. And to this day, they still think it's my brother. Even though it was in my room, but my family believed whatever I said. Anyways, the whole backside of the house was on fire. And we all rush out of the house. And of course, my mom takes care of it. I'm pretty sure she called 911. Well, duh. Sadly, our 2 cats, 2 bunnies, and 4 hamsters were in the house. And our bird, but our bird was getting ready to pass anyways. I'm not sure how, but the house caught on fire so quickly, and the entire thing just blew up into flames. There might have been something else that the fire triggered to make it more big, I guess. I don't really know how to word that. But we ended up raising enough money to move to a different house because we lost every single one of our belongings. When the house burned down, there was only one wall standing, and it was the wall of pictures of my grandma who passed 10 years ago.
This is a story of how I embarrassed myself in front of my entire class. So it was 7th grade math class, and honestly, when I was in middle school, that was definitely my awkward stage. I was just really weird. I always said the wrong thing. And I was always just embarrassing myself in front of people. One day, we were going over all these drills, like, lockdowns, fire drills, all that. And my teacher had a list of questions that we all had to answer, and she was the type of teacher that would just call on you randomly whether you were paying attention or not. And back then, we weren't even allowed to have phones, so I was just completely zoned out because of my ADHD, and the teacher decides to call on me after she had asked this question. If you're in the bathroom by yourself and an intruder comes in and says, "Is anybody in here?" what do you say? Then she calls on me, and I don't know why, but the first thing in my head was to say that you say no. And right away, my teacher looked at me like I was an idiot and started crying, laughing with the entire class. I was mortified.
So when I was a sophomore in high school, I had this teacher who would only let the students in her class use the restroom one time per semester. Well, one day I raised my hand and I was like, "Excuse me," I don't remember her name, "can I please use the restroom?" And she was like, "No, you can't, because you've already used the restroom in my class this semester." Well, excuse me, you can't dictate my bladder. So I'm like all frustrated, and I started secretly texting my mom because I wasn't allowed to use my phone in class. And I was like, "Mom, I'm sitting in class right now. My teacher won't let me use the restroom." And she was like, "I'll take care of it for you." And I was like, "Okay." So like 5 minutes goes by, and all of a sudden my teacher's phone starts ringing. And she walks up to it and answers it, and she's like, "Hello?" "Yeah. Okay, thank you." And then she walks up to me like so angry, and she like slams the pass on my desk, and she was like, "Since you have to go that bad." And I was like, "Yeah, I really do, thanks." And I got up and left. I didn't even have to go to the bathroom. It was just the principle of it. I just roamed the halls.
Story time. 23 years ago, there was this mother of 2 children who just recently had a 3rd child. Soon after, the newborn baby was sleeping in the nursery while they were throwing a house party, and unfortunately, during the party, the house caught on fire. Everyone scrambles out of the house and they couldn't get to the baby, and then the cops concluded that the baby had died in the fire. But her other 2 kids made it out alive. And even though the cops told her that her baby had died, she refused to believe it. Many years later, the mother took her 2 children to a birthday party, and there was this other woman there with her child. And now the mother looks at that child and is in shock because she looks so much like her other 2 kids. She goes up to the little girl and says that she has bubble gum in her hair so that she can steal a few strands of her hair. She took it to a lab and they DNA tested it, and that little girl was her child. So it turns out many years ago during that house party, a woman that the mother knew went upstairs, took the baby, and started the fire so that the baby would be declared as dead and she could easily get away with kidnapping her. And then she ran from the cops and they can't find her.
Go.
Time.
So yesterday my friends and I all went to the fair and there were 6 of us in total. And none of us wanted to have to worry about driving there and parking, so we just Ubered instead. So we left the fair around 11:15 and we walked to a nearby shopping center where their Uber picked us up about 10 minutes late. We ended up leaving at 11:30. We get in the Uber, the man says hello, and we head home the normal way. Everything's fine. And my parents don't like when I Uber, so they were tracking me on Life 360 from the moment I got in the car. After about 10 minutes in, I get a text from my mom, and it said, "Where are you?" I look up from my phone and I realize I have no idea where we are, and Ubers know their directions, they know how to take you home. We were 20 minutes out of the way. So I'm terrified. My mom's texting me nonstop, literally about to call the police. I'm gonna run out of time, but posting part 2 today. Okay, back to the Uber story. Our parents are freaking out, we're texting each other in our group chat so he doesn't hear us. Also, while this is all happening, he wasn't talking to us, but he had an earbud in and he was talking to someone on the phone really quietly. It was super creepy. My mom starts calling me again and he hears the ring. And one of my friends pulled up on her phone the directions to get home, which he also heard, so he knew that we thought something was off. After a little while longer, we finally know where we are, so we feel a little bit better. We were getting really close to the turn that goes into my friend's neighborhood, and we were thinking, if he doesn't make this turn, we're screwed. Thank goodness he makes a turn and we're back at my friend's house. But the scary thing is what if he was planning something, but since our phones were ringing and we had the GPS up, that he changed his mind? Because we were not going home. I still can't stop thinking about it. This is the one time Life 360 has come in handy. We're all safe now.
I never wore big dresses to school. Let me set the scene for you. 4th grade Joe, 9 years old, super perky and happy to be wearing a giant dress to school. You know, I don't know why I was. Maybe we had just gotten it. I was super excited about it. It was like a Wednesday. I was probably like, "Mom, I want to wear this dress." And since I was mainly tomboyish my entire life, she was probably like, "Yes, wear it." So I took it to school. It made playtime a little complicated, but that's fine. Recess was fine. I was one of those kids who liked to roll around in the dirt, climb trees, all that jazz. And I'm like, it's just a dress. It'll be fine. So it's time for like nutrition class. I don't know. They're trying to teach us about like pyramids and like food groups. My teacher starts looking at me funny. And then she kind of just says to the entire class, "Josadak?" And I'm like, "Is it Josadak? Can you come with me outside for a second?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." 4th grade me just comes with her outside. And when we're outside, she closes the door. And I'm like, huh. She slowly takes off her shoe. I was like, oh, look for part 2. Okay, part 2. I honestly didn't expect to make 2 parts out of this. So my teacher was looking at me like so intensely while she was taking off her shoe. And I was so confused. Miss whatever your name is, because I don't remember. What are you doing? And she goes, "Don't move." And I start panicking. But I do what she says. Like, she gets her shoe, she holds it up to here. And then she throws it at me. And I literally jumped. She hit me in the bottom half of my dress. The shoe went flying. You know what else went flying? Right next to her shoe was the giantest spider I have ever seen in my life. I think it was a tarantula, which would have been fine because tarantulas are pretty much harmless. But at the time, both her and I were freaking out. She literally knocked the spider out. Her aim was so good. I'm actually amazed right now. She's like, "Oh my god, I saw that on your dress when you came in and I had to get it off." I was like, "Thank you." Yeah, I had no idea that was on there.
I got hit by a car at work. Story time. So 2 weeks ago, I was at work, obviously, and I was getting trained. But they were training me in a different building. This building just so happened to be behind a grocery store. And during my lunch, I walked over to the grocery store to get a fork. To get to the store, I had to walk through the parking lot, just like you do for any store. As I was walking through the parking lot, I walked behind this parked car. I didn't realize that they were trying to back up, but they were. And then they backed up into me. It was honestly just a little tap, but it still hurted. So it was a young girl, and after she slightly taps me, she comes out of her car, hysterical, freaking out like, "Oh my god, are you okay? Like, do you have to go to the hospital? I'm so sorry." She was freaking out more than I was. To make her feel a little bit better, I was trying to joke around with her, and I was like, "Girl, I'm okay, I'm alive, you didn't finish the job." After I said that, it just made the situation worse. She just stared at me like I was crazy and said, "You need help." And I was like, "Girl, I'm trying to make you feel better for hitting me. Like, actually, you know what? My neck actually hurts. I might just sue. Make our pockets hurt."